again to do a transition between the two talks. So that's clear, tooling is very important for everybody. And people are working in the background to improve our tools. Probably this new mailing list called Workflows in Linux kernel community will improve things. There is a big range of tools they can work on, like Patchwork, but also a good email client with Git integration, etc. There are a lot of discussions. We have a chance in DPDK because now we have someone which is partly working on this kind of stuff, so some tooling. He is participating in Patchwork development. He is managing more and more services for DPDK, dpdk.org. So basically, he's the administrator of the servers. So Ali Alnubani from Mellanox.
Can you hear me? My name is Ali. I work for Mellanox and have been for 3 years almost. I do verification. I create and manage continuous integration pipelines, and I have been contributing to and managing some of the services that are hosted by dpdk.org. This will be a quick overview of these services. I'll also talk about some tools and APIs that you can use. So to start, we have two main websites. One is built with WordPress and is managed by the Linux Foundation. The other core.dpdk.org. Core.dpdk.org is built with a framework called Hugo. It is managed by the community and is updated with patches sent to the web mailing list. As for documentation, the guides are built with the Sphinx and themed with the read the docs theme. The API's HTML is generated with Doxygen. I have also included where the source code of all these tools in my presentation, so that if you are interested to contribute to any of them, you should. So our CDN, which serves static content, PDF documents, and other kinds of documents, release starballs as well is hosted by Fastly. So there's CGET, the repository browser. CGET is a CGI application written in C. Patchwork is a patch tracking system. It is a Django application. Its source code is available on GitHub. Django is a web framework for Python. Mailman 2 is our mailing list manager. Mailman is written in Python. Its development is done with the Bazaar or BZR revision control system. You can find information on contributing on list.org. Bugzilla is our bug tracking system, and it's a Perl application. So our servers are hosted with Gandhi.net. So dpdk.org has always used Mailman 2 as the mailing list manager. Mailman 2 uses the internal archiver PiperMail with archives available at mails.dpdk.org/archives. So there are some limitations and issues of Mailman 2 archives that I'm sure you have noticed before with DPDK project and with other projects as well. One of them is that actually this isn't an issue with the archives. This is an issue with the subscription system with Mailman 2, which is that it stores passwords in plain text and it also sends them via email to users, which is bad, obviously, for so many reasons. There's also another thing that bothers a lot of people, which is that there isn't internal support in Mailman 2 to search through threads. There are some alternatives. you can search external archives. I know that mark.info has mirrors for some of our archives. Mail-archive.com also has for some of them, but not all of our archives are mirrored on these websites. There's also inbox.dpdk.org, which I will talk about shortly. There's another option, which is to use web search engines to search for what you want. But this depends on whether the web search engine has crawled and indexed the post or not yet. So some threads might never be indexed in any by any web search engine, and you won't be able to search them this way. You can also search your mail client, but this doesn't work if you are a new user. You'd have to be subscribed for the mailing lists and for a very long time to be able to do that. So there's another issue, which is that it's hard to reply to all the threads. I'm talking about threads that you don't have with your mail client, threads that you can just go to and click on reply or reply all. There are some alternatives to that. You could import the gzipped archives for that month from this URL. You can even decompress that and import it into your mail client if that works, because Mailman 2 kind of mangles these archives and removes some headers from them, so that might not work with all mail clients. You need to then look after you import it in your mail client. You need to look for through hundreds or thousands of messages in that month, find the message that you want to reply to, and reply to it. Or you can just look in the you can just find the message ID in the page source of the thread when you open it. And just use the message ID as the reply to header in your mail client. Anyway, in both cases, you will need to manually set the recipients because the archives don't include all of them, again because they are mangled by Mailman. Anyway, so we recently started using a project called Public Inbox. The project is also used by kernel.org. Public Inbox was built with decentralization in mind. It is against software being a single point of failure. It provides accessibility and compatibility with other tools and with devices that lack the computational power to handle modern websites. That's why its web UI looks very simple. I'll go back to that. So a key feature in Public Inbox is that it stores the archives as Git objects. This has many benefits. Performance is one of them, because Git is very efficient with text. So Public Inbox provides multiple features. It provides a very fast search engine with Zapier with the Zapier framework as the backend. It provides the ability to download an unbox per thread, an unbox file that you can import into your mail client with all of the headers, not changed or anything, and you can just click reply after that, and that should work. If you go to any thread, in Public Inbox, for example, if you click this one, you will find a reply link where you will where you will see instructions with get send email on how to reply to that thread with get send email. So again, emails are stored as Git objects. Every list archives are stored as a Git repository, which means that the archives are clonable. It also means that you can use your knowledge in Git to search through archives, not just with the web UI. So you can also search with Git as well. So it provides also atom feeds. The archives are accessible with NNTP as well. Read-only access, obviously. So the UI is also customizable. There's a template, user content.css, that you can download from here. And you can use that as a template if your browser supports that. I know that Firefox does. It provides message ID based URL format. It doesn't just the URLs aren't just a random number. The URL will end with the message ID. This is very useful especially for integration with external applications. For more information, you can always go to the project's website. So our archives are available on inbox.dpdk.org. The dev mailing list is available on lord.kernel.org as well, so you can find it there. Here's how the archives look. This is the index page, inbox.dpdk.org. You will find all of the archives. Here's the view of the archives, and here you can find a part of the help section, which you will find if you click on the help link. You can find prefixes that you can use with your search if you want to perform a complex search and to narrow down the search results. I highly suggest that you read the documentation of this. Core.dpdk.org is built with a framework called Hugo. Hugo is a framework that is used to build websites. It is very fast. Hugo renders the markdown file. Hugo takes markdown files and it renders them to HTML. And to set up a development environment, you need to follow this guide. And then you'll end up with a binary and executable named Hugo. You can then clone the repository, DPDK web, which has the source code for core.dpdk.org. You can then run the command Hugo server inside that directory. One more thing: when you clone, just make sure to pull the submodules. Because that pulls a theme that we use with the website. So Hugo server will run a server on localhost that will re-render the files each time you make a change. You can also follow the improve this page link on any page on the website, which will redirect you to the file that has the content of that page. You can then make your changes and send patches to web@dpdk.org. Elixir is another tool that we started using a few weeks ago. Elixir is a source code cross-referencer. It provides web-based browsing of source code, of course with links to the definitions and identifiers across all files and releases. And it does that with exuberant C tags. You can also perform queries with command line as well. Our Elixir is available on code.dpdk.org. It's also available on elixir.dpdk.org. To be able to perform queries with command line, you need to follow the instruction on the README of the project page, so that you build a database that you use. After you build the database, you can perform the queries. So here's an example of a query. This is the command line one. And this is the same query on the web. Of course, with the web, you can, these links are clickable, so you can follow them. With command line, you just see static data with no links, of course. So last year we upgraded our patchwork to version 2.0, which added support for the REST API. GitPW is a tool that integrates Git with that API. It is written in Python. It is available on PyPI. You can also install it with the setup tools. You can just clone it and run the setup.py script that it comes with. GitPW reads your Git configurations, so it is configurable with gitconf with the git config command. You need to set the server. Make sure to set the API version. Right now it's 1 or 1.1, but we will soon upgrade patchwork, and we will start supporting version 2.0 after the upgrade. You need to set the project, and you need to set a token, which you generate from this URL. Of course, you need to be signed in. So this is one way of configuring GitPW. You can also set environment variables, and you can also provide these as command line arguments. You can then use GitPW to download, query or apply patches, series, or bundles even. Here are some example usage. You can find more information on their documentation. Anyway, so there are some special headers that you can use with patchwork to change the default behavior that patchwork does with your patch or series. Xpatchwork hint, if it has a value, if it's set to ignore, that tells patchwork to ignore your patch, so it will not appear on patchwork's UI. If that's ever useful to you. Xpatchwork delegate sets the delegate so that it's not empty. The state sets the state of the patch, accepted RFC, rejected, whatever, upon arrival. This is an example of how to add a header to a series or a patch with get send email. So you just need to fill the header with any of these if you want to use them. So Bugzilla has multiple APIs that you can use with external for external integration. There's XML RPC, JSON RPC. The recommended one to use is the REST API, the native REST API, which has the root endpoint of /REST. The rest of the APIs will be deprecated soon and will be removed from future versions of Bugzilla. There's another old and deprecated API that's called BZ API. This also is a REST API, but it's not a native one, and it required a proxy that we don't have, so it doesn't work with our instance. JSON RPC and and XML RPC still work too. But again, the recommended one to use is the REST endpoint. So you can use the API to get, create, or update or search bugs or comments. You can get information about the Bugzilla instance itself, about products and components. You can also create components and products. But of course, some operations and some endpoints require you to be in some permissions group if you ever want to do that, and you need to tell the admin so that he gives you permissions to be able to do that. Right now, the administrator is Tuma, so you can contact him for these permissions. There's also more that you can do, not just the ones that I mentioned here. You can read more about the API on that documentation. So here's an example of how to create a bug using the REST API. First, you need to generate an API key from this URL. You can then use that API key to post this payload to this endpoint. The fields in bold are the ones that are required, and the request will not work without them. This is very useful, especially in like CI environments and with testing. Here are two examples of one with Python's requests framework and another with CURL. You can see how a bug can be created with any of these. Please note that it's important to set the content type. It has to be application/JSON. Otherwise, Bugzilla will not accept it, and you will get an error. Anyway, the Bugzilla will return a JSON object that either has the bug ID that you just created or an error. So you can check what it returns to see if it's a success or a failure. It is recommended to use HTTPS with this operation, since you have a key that an attacker could use in a bad way. So make sure to use HTTPS. Here's another way of how to create a bug. You can also create bugs with email. You just need to add this kind of headers or fields. Product, component version, severity. There are a lot of fields that you can fill. You can find them on the documentation somewhere. But this part of Bugzilla is not well documented, and you actually need to read the code that does this to understand exactly how it works. But these are basically the same fields that you find on the web UI. You just fill them this way and add the bug description. When you send the email, the bug will be created. The bug ID, you only fill that. You only fill this field, the bug ID, when you want to update a bug. So you can fill the bug ID and just, when you provide this information, they will override the ones that are already in the bug. So we have some future plans. An ARC bot might be useful. I'm not yet sure about this. A lot of projects use that. It could be useful for notifications on bug creation or state change, release notifications or documentation queries. You can ask it things maybe. I have also been experimenting with Mailman 3. Mailman 3 was first released in 2015, I think. It is a complete rewrite of Mailman 2. It's not just a single component like in Mailman 2. Mailman 3 is multiple components that work together. They usually exchange information with the REST API. So it also provides the REST API. It is more modern looking. It also has a single user account across all lists. Unlike Mailman 2, which requires you to have a subscription and password for each list. It also has searchable archives. If you follow the fedoraproject.org, you can see how it looks. So for patchwork, we're planning to add the DTS project soon. Maybe link the patches or series to their mailing list threads. This can't be done with Mailman. If we do that, we'll probably link to public inbox instead. Maybe fix the automatic delegation of patchwork and use the ones that actually patchwork already has automatic delegations, but it doesn't work yet in our instance. So maybe also use the rules dynamically from the maintainers file instead of using hard-coded ones inside the database of patchwork. Also, it was suggested to whine about patches or series with no activity. Like for patches with like a patch that has been forever with no updates and no reviews. Anyway, thank you for listening. If you have any questions or suggestions, I'll be happy to hear. Thank you.
Thanks for the updates. For the last bit, DTS will be added into Patchwork, but we have 4 applications hosted in DPDK. Like SPP is having some kind of activity. Can we add them as well?
Yeah, sure. We can add
multiple projects there.
I think some of the projects are already on the OZ Labs or the kernel.org patchwork. Like OVS, I think OVS is on patchwork.kernel.org. But we could also add other projects, not just DTS.
Any plans on using Slack instead of IRC?
Yeah, maybe. Tuma, what do you think?
I don't know. I just don't know. One comment about Mailman. I remember I already said maybe last year or 2 years ago that we are going to switch from Mailman 2 to Mailman 3. And it did not happen because there are some limitation currently in Mailman 3, and Ali is reviewing this limitation regularly to see if it's ready or not for deployment. And the thing is that in the meanwhile, he deployed a public inbox for searchable archives. It was one of the big advantage of Mailman 3. So now maybe it's not worth to switch to Mailman 3.
There's another thing with how Mailman 3 looks. It actually looks like an internet forum, and a lot of people aren't comfortable with using that. It's a personal preference. There's also the fact that users are able to remove their posts, which is also something that also people aren't or don't want that to happen. So these are two design issues that we need to decide if we accept them or not. Because there can only be one mailing list. There can be two. So if we switch to Mailman 3, Mailman 2 will be, our Mailman 2 instance will be dead.
Ali, yeah, one question is about the DTS. You will add it to the patchwork. So we are the maintainers for DTS. And anything needed to be changed from the patch review or something we need to update?
Not really. I think it will be easier for you to just start following patchwork like we do with the dev mailing list. But nothing is required from the DTS side, I think. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's a break. Let's try to start on time.